Hello and welcome back to another Official Vader video. This is part 4 of my Star Wars Canon Timeline, Age of the New Republic. This period of time spans nearly 20 years, from 15 ABY to 34 ABY, right up to The Force Awakens. Here is the key, the timeline BBY ABY. The films, shows, and video games are represented with logos, short stories are in green, comics are in red, novels in purple, and additional events in light blue. And now we'll fast forward through the timeline. These eras I've covered in the previous videos. The Republic, the Empire, the rise of the Rebellion, and now we enter the Age of the New Republic. Okay, so in the first year, 15 ABY, we have a lot of stuff going on. All just additional events, no stories actually taking place. But the birth of Rey, she is 19 in Force Awakens. So she is born here, and Ben Solo begins Jedi training with Luke, and Ben Solo is 10 years old because he is 10 years older than Rey. And we also have Lando's 2-year-old daughter being taken by the First Order. This was supposed to be in The Rise of Skywalker, and it got cut. It's in the novelization, and it's in the visual dictionary. Lando had a 2-year-old daughter, and she was taken by the First Order, and that's why he connects with Janna at the end of The Rise of Skywalker. Fast forward about 6 years, Rey is now 6, and Rey is left on Jakku by her parents. We now know why from The Rise of Skywalker. And then Luke, also in that same year, begins the search for Exegol. Now we arrive at 28 ABY, the most crucial year that sets up the sequel trilogy. We start with Star Wars Bloodline, written by Claudia Gray. It is a story that centers around Leia on Hosnian Prime, running for First Senator, and it is revealed that she is the daughter of Darth Vader, and that kind of just destroys her campaign. So that's what the basic premise is about. It's written by Claudia Gray, one of my favorite Star Wars authors, and if you love Leia, and if you want a good political thriller, if you're interested in Star Wars politics, I am one of those fans, then this is the perfect read for you. Then in the same year, we're not too sure of when this takes place relative to Bloodline. We just know that in Bloodline, Leia is out of contact with Luke and Ben, so she hasn't heard from them. So we don't know whether this comic takes place a little bit before Bloodline or maybe after. But anyway, it details the rise of Kylo Ren, the fall of Ben Solo, and the transformation of Ben to Ren, as Charles Soule, the writer, phrases it. And then we see Ben meeting up with the Knights of Ren. We see him taking down his own hut that fateful night at Luke's temple, and then the temple being destroyed, and we see what happens with Ben and how Ben really falls to the dark side. Then a year later, once Kylo Ren is the master of the Knights of Ren, Snoke allows the First Order to reveal themselves to the galaxy. Now, the New Republic don't really think the First Order is a threat. They know they exist, but it's just like a small little faction, and they don't know the scale of it. And then Leia bans the Resistance at the end of Bloodline to gather her forces to, because she senses something is coming, and then a year later, they do realize that the First Order is a thing, and she has the Resistance to fight it, while the New Republic doesn't really want to do anything about it. Then we have a novel called Phasma, written by Delilah Dawson. I actually met her at the Star Wars Celebration in Chicago. I was at the book table, and I told her I really loved Phasma, and she was like, thank you. So that was really cool. But yeah, this Phasma novel details her past on Parnassus, her home planet, and it's a very interesting book. I really like it. And she introduces a couple new characters actually, so that's really fun. Moving on to just before The Force Awakens, around 34 ABY, or just before 34 ABY, we have Star Wars Force Collector. This is written by Kevin Shinnick, and it is a small little young adult novel about this boy growing up, and he has the Force, but he can only use the sense echo. That's like Cal Kestis's power, where you touch an object and you see its past. So he's going around the galaxy go into specific locations that us fans know, and he's touching things and he's seeing scenes from the movies. So it's a celebration of the Skywalker saga from this kid's point of view. I really enjoyed it. It's actually it's a fun book if you're interested for like a fun adventure. Then we have Before the Awakening. That is a book with 3 short stories, one about Rey, Finn, and Poe. The Rey story is about her on Jakku before The Force Awakens, just her daily life. She's building stuff, building ships, flying it around. And then Poe's story is about him flying in the New Republic, and then he meets General Leia Organa, and that's when he joins the Resistance. So that's his Resistance beginnings. And then Finn is in the Stormtrooper Academy. He's training as a Stormtrooper, and he's actually training with the Stormtrooper who screams traitor in Force Awakens. So that's why he screams traitor, because they knew each other and they sparred together in that book. Then we get C-3PO, a one-shot comic book. Nothing really much to say about this comic. I mean, it's just a one-shot. The only thing it gives you is that this is how C-3PO gets his red arm that you see him in Force Awakens with. Poe Dameron comic is written by Charles Soule. Charles Soule is probably one of my favorite comic authors in the canon, and Poe Dameron, this is a very well-written series. It's very fun. I love Poe, and this series enhances my love for that character. It's about 35 issues, I would say, and it starts before The Force Awakens, but then it goes all the way past The Last Jedi. So you see Poe's journey throughout that history. He's looking for Lor San Tekka before The Force Awakens, and then you see him talking with Rey and Finn on the Falcon right after the end of The Last Jedi. So I really do love that comic. It's got some really good art too, so I suggest you check it out if you are a fan of Poe as well. And then we have Aliens. It's a volume. They have volume 1. They don't have volume 2 yet, but it's a combination of short stories based on aliens that you see in Force Awakens. My favorite story is about Sidon Ithano. He's a Delphidian. He's the one guy with the red helmet that Finn is about to go with on Takodana. And the story is that he finds a clone trooper who is in stasis from 50 years ago from the Clone War, and his name is Kix. And if you watch Star Wars: The Clone Wars, you will see Kix in that show. So Kix actually survives the war. He gets put into stasis. If you read the book, you'll understand more about the story. But anyway, he's in stasis for 50 years, and then Sidon Ithano bails him out. So Kix is alive during the sequel trilogy. Then after Aliens Volume 1, we have a story called Legends of Luke Skywalker. It is a short story, well, a bunch of short stories in one book, and some are myths that people are telling other people in the galaxy about Luke Skywalker, what they think he did during the Galactic Civil War. Some people are saying he was pulling Star Destroyers out of the sky at the Battle of Jakku, which in reality, Luke Skywalker wasn't even at the Battle of Jakku, at least to our knowledge. He's not been anything or anywhere near Jakku in any of the canon media. And then there's other stories of him learning things that he does in Last Jedi, but it's a very interesting story where some stories are myths told by the people actually in the galaxy. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, you should definitely give it a try. Got some cool stories in there. Then finally we have the most recent animated show, Star Wars Resistance. It takes place before The Force Awakens, and then it carries over until past The Last Jedi. So there's only 2 seasons. I'm not really crazy about the series. It is really centered for kids. It's meant for kids. It was made for kids. I wanted it to be a little bit better. I was so used to the Clone Wars and the Rebels, and even though those shows were technically made for kids, there's some really dark stuff that happens in there. And then Resistance is just a whole nother different show. It's very low on the scale. So I hope whatever the next animated show will be a little bit darker, a little bit more mature, even though it is still animated. But again, many Star Wars fans are obsessed with the animated shows. So I hope the next show is something of better quality. And that's it for the Age of the New Republic. Next video I will have this slide, but then I will just add to it. So you will see the next 2 sequel trilogy movies and then the rest of the content that takes place after Force Awakens. and before the Rise of Skywalker, because as of yet we have nothing past Episode 9. Next video will cover the rest of the sequel trilogy era. It will be titled Dawn of the First Order. If you enjoy my content so far, please like and subscribe. May the Force be with you, and I hope you all have a good one.